Alright, so welcome to After Effects. I'm going to be relying heavily on some notes that I've made just to speed this along a little bit. So hopefully this tutorial doesn't go too terribly long. But let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to import our footage, our video footage, which is this one right here for me. And I'm just going to drag it down into the new composition button. And control click here to make everything 16 bits per channel. I always like to pre-compose my footage by hitting Control Shift C. That's the keyboard shortcut, or you can just go up to Layer Pre-Compose. And I just call this footage and call that good. Alright, and we're going to also have to trim this footage. So the thing with After Effects that you have to remember is it starts out at frame 0 instead of frame 1 like Blender usually does. So you have to take that into account when you're syncing up your effects with your footage. So that means if we started on frame 700 in Blender, which we did, we're going to start on frame 699 in After Effects. So if you hit Alt, begin brackets, that trims that there. And we went to 1300 or 1299 in After Effects, and Alt N brackets will trim that. And if we just bring that there, bring this in here, holding Shift to snap it there, right click and trim comp to work area. And that's all the footage we need. Excellent. Okay, might as well turn this off, we don't need the audio. Alright, next thing we're gonna do is bring in our claws layer. So, let's see here. Rendered claws. Claws V2. I had to render it twice because issues with rendering. It happens sometimes. But the good thing about render layers is you can just render out that specific layer. Okay. Didn't need to open that. Let's see here. Hit Enter to rename this claws. Wonderful. Okay, so it imports your image sequence, and it wants to default to 30 frames per second or whatever you have After Effects set up to default as. But our footage is 59.94 frames per second. So if you right click and go to Interpret Footage, Main, 59.94 frames per second. Yeah, I was recording at 60 frames per second, which was probably not the best idea because that means, you know, so many more frames to render. And it takes that much longer, so, you know, whatever. Okay, so we're going to right-click this, go into Interpret Footage again, click Remember Interpretation, so we can apply that quickly to all the other stuff we import. Excellent. Drag that down here. And as we go through, you will see we have our claws. Hooray. Wonderful. And everything's all synced up beautifully, just as it should be. Alright, now I want to tweak the claws here to make them look like they blend in with the footage a little better, do a little bit of color grading right off the bat. So we're going to apply a levels effect. Let's drag this out here. And I'm just going to drag this arrow in to somewhere. Let's see. Somewhere around there. Yeah. Just kind of to bring up the shadows a little bit, so this is what it looks like without it and with it. Next thing we're going to do is blur and sharpen box blur just to soften it a little. Let's see here. I think 0.3, sorry. Just to slightly soften it. See what that looks like. Kind of match the blurriness of my hand a little bit. That's kind of what I'm looking at. And let's see, I think in the levels I also want to mess with the colors. So let's see, go to the red or the green channel, blue channel. Yeah, I think I want to take down some of the blue, because even though it is reflecting the window, we want to add a little bit of red to it as well. Yeah, it's introducing some green to it. That's a little too much red. Too much green. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay. Not bad. Alright, repeat edge pixels on that. Alright, the last thing we're going to do is noise and grain, add grain. And you can see the default is way too much. Let's change the intensity down to 0.3. And you can see that tones it down a lot. Change the size to 0.7. Make it a little bit smaller. And if we check the channels, you can see more of the noise that's going on in each channel. And the blue channel, you can see it looks a little bigger. The noise looks a little bigger, so I'm going to change that, the blue channel size, to be about 1.2, just to make it a bit larger. And that should do it for that. So we'll change this to final output, and then we'll hide it because we don't need that until we actually render that out. Okay, I think that is it for that. Okay, hang on. In my notes, I mentioned that when the claws come out here at the beginning, there's an odd frame where it starts to come through the model in a strange way because of how the model was shaped. So it's easier to fix that sort of thing here in After Effects. So I'm just going to get the pen tool here, draw a nice little shape around that, and I'm going to hit M to bring up the mask, and I'm going to hit subtract. So then we have everything else but that. Click on the stopwatch for the mask path so we can animate it. Go one frame up and just drag that off screen. And one frame down and drag it off screen. Okay. And that's all we need to do for that. You can hide the mask by doing that. So it looks like that. So yeah, it's not bad. Excellent. Alright, so that's all we gotta do for the claws. I guess we can lock that layer if we want. Alright. Oh, hang on. I don't want to lock it just yet. We're going to duplicate this claws layer. And we're going to call this, hit enter to rename, Claws Glow. And this is just a little thing I'm going to do to hopefully blend it in a little better. Let's delete the grain, because we don't need it for this. And we're going to go into the RGB for the levels. And let's see here. Okay, let's just do a whole new effect. Color correction curves. And if we solo this, and click this button here to get a black background, we can see what we're doing. I'm going to bring a huge contrast curve into this just to get the brights of the claw. Good, and then we're going to apply a blur. It's going to be, this time we're going to do a Gaussian blur, I believe. Set this to, what, 20, I think? 20 should be good. Well, we'll see how that looks. Okay, and then we'll set this to screen. Alright, so you can see that we now have a glow. I believe, let's see here, set this opacity down to like 75, possibly 50. Yeah, this is supposed to be just a real subtle thing to help blend in when things get bright. Yeah, maybe 25 even. Yeah, it looks good. Okay. Yeah. That way when it catches the light, it gets sort of a diffused look as the light goes into our camera, supposedly. Okay, that's not bad at all. Just So we can lock this and lock this. Great. Alright, next thing we're going to do. Bring in our other footages. Or one of our other footages. Let's see here, what's the next one? Hand shadow, that's the next one. Alright. Let's rename this. Hand shadow. Drag it below the claws. And let's see here. What the heck is going on with that? That's the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh, I know what's going on with that. This can happen sometimes. Don't panic. We forgot to change the frames per second. So right click that, interpret footage, apply interpretation. Now everything should look good. And the length matches properly. So excellent. So you can see as we get into this sort of thing, that's what it looks like with the shadow, that's without. So definitely a better look there. We shouldn't have to even change much with this layer. However, you may have noticed at the very beginning we got some weird shadowing going on because the claws were in there intersecting with the hand model that we had in Blender and casting some shadows, and so we're gonna have to get rid of that. Luckily, it's about as easy as the other thing we did. Get the pen tool, go over here and just draw a shape. Hit M, mask path, edit, subtract. English. Alright. And let's see, we're on frame something or other. Yeah, let's just go here. Just keep it there. Okay. So just go for, if you hold shift and hit page down, you can go forward by 10 frames, or backwards if you hit page up. And we just want to keep going until the claws are finished coming out. So to about there. Yeah, we'll keep that there. Go one frame down and drag that mask off screen. If you press shift, or if you press right shift and the question mark key, it'll snap the zoom. It'll zoom to fit your window here. Which is a helpful shortcut that I use sometimes. Okay, so that works. We're going to have to bring that mask back in once the claws go back in. If you've done that, I did, so I'm going to have to bring it back. Once all the claws go back in. Let's see. Let's just say, where's the first frame? Right there. Okay. Go to here. One more frame. Nah, that's good. Add a keyframe by clicking that little thing. Page down. And now I'm going to just drag that up there. And right there. Till the motion stops. And put it down there. Double click it and you can bring up this nice little transform thingy, which is handy sometimes. Yay, keyframing. Okay. I think we'll just go all the way to here, drag it up, shift page down to go down by 10 frames. Make sure it keeps over the shadow artifact thing. Yep. And on the last frame, let's just do another keyframe. Okay. Flawless. And that should be all we have to do with that. Let me check my notes. Okay. Yes. And that does it. Okay. Next, import. Let's import our dots footage. Dots left. Why not? We'll start with the left. Enter dots L. For some reason, I'm not sure why it doesn't come in as with its name. That's kind of annoying, really. Apply interpretation. Drag that down below the hand shadow because, you know, they're getting they should get the shadow casted on them if such an event were to occur, but it doesn't really because they're on the wrong side of the hand. But who cares? Let's keep things organized, shall we? Alright. Looks good. Where's the... yeah, there we go. Alright. Now, we're going to add some effects to these to better blend them in. First thing I'm going to do is actually hit Control D to duplicate. And I'm going to use that, the top one, as a track matte. So let's hit alpha matte dots L. So basically it's using itself as an alpha matte, which is an interesting way to do things, but we want to add like a blur without blurring out the texture of the hand, if any of the texture gets through. So it's just the way that I devised to soften it a little bit without having to blur what's being shown or what we've rendered. So we're going to add a box blur. Yes, where's our box blur? Set to, here, let's, well, yeah. Set to, what, 2, I think? Something like that. Repeat edge pixels. Okay, so you can see that softens it up a little bit. Let's do a matte choker right above that. No, sorry, a simple choker. There we go. Got that up there. And what? 1, 2. Can be a bit fiddly. Alright, that looks pretty good. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, so that's that one there. Not bad. Go ahead and lock those. And we'll bring in our next dots layer. Dots middle. Interpret footage, apply interpretation, and dots M. Drag that down here. Let's get to a nice frame where we can see. We're going to duplicate that as well, set it to alpha matte, and effect, blur and sharpen box blur. This is a bit redundant, as are all things with these little dots. What are you going to do? It happens. So that already straight away looks pretty good. Might be a little... well, okay, let's do that simple choker. Tighten it up a wee bit. Ah, yes, that's nice. Okay. Call that good. And lock those two. Bring in our next dots layer. Dots R. Dots R. Apply interpretation. And bring it down. Let's see, where's the right side? There it is. Okay, needs a little bit of help. Control D. Alpha matte. I'm just gonna go over here and whoop, I locked it. Just gonna grab these. Control C, relock it. Control V, and now we have those already. That looks pretty good. Maybe even a 3. Soften it. Yeah. Let's do something like that. Ah. Yeah, so each of these dots might need a bit of tweaking on their own. Let's see here, this dot's middle even. You can kind of see it when it goes over there, so... yeah. Gotta hide it as much as you can. You might even need to keyframe some of the chokes as the animation goes on. Yeah, like these here, you can start to see those. So it's the kind of thing where, oh, that's not actually even a dot. That's just a shadow. But yeah, so you know, keyframe it as you see fit. It's a bit of a fiddly process, so just keep that in mind as your footage is being edited. That was a terribly constructed sentence, and please forgive me. Alright, let's just move along before this gets any worse. Okay. One more dots layer that we need. Let's go a little further here to... yeah, that's a layer right there. Okay, dots top. That's our last dots layer. And we can get on to some more exciting things. Apply interpretation. Drag it down. And I believe I can just hit Control V and get all my stuff. Excellent. Let's just go like 0.5 for that one. Yeah, not bad. Alright, that looks good. Nothing to see here. Oh, hang on. I didn't even duplicate it. Control X. Control D. Alpha Matte. Control V. Yeah, I mean, you could do it without doing the Alpha Matte step. I just didn't want to lose any details in the footage that I might have had, so it's all a matter of taste, really. What I did in my original video was I just blurred everything out with a white mask for where the dots were, and it worked okay, but I wasn't really too happy with the method itself, so I wanted to try something a little different for this. So, you know, I mean, it's different, and I think it works a little better. But either way you do it, you're going to need to do some tweaking. It's kind of the way all these things go. So hopefully you'll be able to learn a few methods out of this tutorial. Alright, that's it for the dots. What's next? Shadow. Yes, let's go to the shadow. Not the hand shadow, the actual shadow. We're going to import V2. I had to re-render the shadow as well, so just a couple of the layers. Shadow. Just shadow. Apply interpretation, drag that down. And as you can see, we have our shadow of the claws on the arm. But you can also see that since the model wasn't exact to my proportions, we're getting a little bit of overlap. So let's go to like this frame over here, somewhere where, yeah, like this, because that's the fiddly part. And now that is why we also rendered out the shadow matte from Blender. Let's call this shadow matte, and apply interpretation. Drag that down, and we're going to use that as an alpha matte for the shadow. Now, nothing's changed because it's the exact same thing, but if we do a little bit of playing around, then, oh, hang on, there's another step that I forgot about. Let me check my notes here. Yes. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're also going to duplicate our original footage layer. Control D. So now we have a copy of the footage layer. And we're actually going to, track matte for a second. Select these two here, the shadow matte and the duplicated footage layer. Control Shift C and pre-compose that. And let's see, let's call this shadow matte comp. And now we're going to use the shadow matte as an alpha matte for the footage. Now you might be wondering why we're doing this. Well, the reason we're doing this is because we don't want the shadow layer here to combine with the other shadows in the footage and make them darker, because that's not really how these shadows are supposed to blend. We want them to sort of blend into each other seamlessly. So we're going to kind of mimic that with this method, hopefully. So let me check my notes here again. Okay, box blur on the footage. We're going to use a box blur of 2 repeat edge pixels. This will just soften it a little bit, the box blur. And we're going to do a simple choker. Effect, matte, simple choker at what? 20 is what I have in my notes. This tightens it up here. And box blur of 4 to the matte layer itself. So that'll soften up the edges, as you can see here. Okay. Great. Fantastic. And we'll go back in here. So now you can see if we set this to alpha matte, it kind of blends it a little better. We might even go back in here and change the choke to something like 15 just to get it closer. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, something so that it looks like it's on the arm. And if you have to add a little bit more blur to make it blend, do what you gotta do. But I think that looks pretty good. Alright, let's see. What we want to do first of all is it's using the color for the... Hang on, I don't want the alpha. I want the Luma matte. Yes. Okay, so the thing is, we want to change this layer here to black and white. Let's solo that. So if we go to Effect and Color Correction Tint, that makes it black and white. And if we get a levels effect in here as well, we can bring that up. So we just want to try to isolate the lighter areas and darken up the shadows so that our shadow layer will not show up in the dark areas, but it will show up in the lighter areas. And that hopefully will blend it in a little better with the footage. So let's drag this in. I'm not sure. Let me see my notes here. Video about 25.6. Somewhere around there. Hey, look, what do you know? And right, 913. Okay, not bad. And one more. Okay. So that's about what I had before. So all the shadows here, the dark areas will not be included. There you go. Okay, so that's pretty decent looking. Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, it blends in a lot better with the actual shadows on my arm. That's the whole idea behind that. So, we'll call that good. The problem is we got to do a little bit more masking on this shadow layer because these here are the claws inside my arm. And we got to get rid of those because you're not supposed to be able to see the shadow of the claws inside my arm. So, let's do some more masking. I tried to figure out a way to get rid of that in Blender, but it would have taken me too long to try to figure that out. And I figured it was an easy enough fix in After Effects. And it is. So, let's hit M, do subtract, and add a keyframe for the mask. This is something you only have to do at the beginning and the end, at least in the case of my shot. Alright, so let's edit this here. Bring that up a little bit. You don't have to be too precise. We can add a feather to this as well by hitting F, or just by twirling down the whole thing. And then you get all your mask options. But let's add a feather of, I don't know, 5. That might help smooth it out a little bit. And let's keep going. We can see that now we're seeing some shadows that we want to see. So let's just keep this localized around the hand shadow there. And go down just until the claws are fully extended. And that's about the last we'll need to do with this until the end of the shot. Something like that. Okay, and then once we get to that keyframe, go one frame later, drag it off, and we'll come to the end when the claws go back in. Let's see here, where do they go back in? right there. So starting at where they're fully visible, set a keyframe, and the next frame just go right up to here, around about where it used to be. Alright, looking good so far. I'm not seeing any sign of claws where we don't want to see them. Very good. Drag that down to encompass all that. Excellent. If you click on Mask Path, it selects all the points for you, so you don't have to select them all manually. I'm not sure how familiar you are with After Effects, but it's kind of my compositing tool of choice at this point. Some people laugh at me, but I don't care. It's what I learned on, and it's what I'm the quickest on. And I'm a lot quicker than this if I don't have to talk about it while I'm doing it, much as the case with Blender. And let's just go to the end by hitting End on the keyboard. And there we go. That's our last keyframe. That's all we're going to do. Everything's looking good. Alright, let's lock those two, I guess. That's all we need to do. Oh, what's next? What is next? Oh, yes. Okay, so here I'm going to discuss something that I did as a little additional thing. Not everybody will have to do this. This is just a little extra thing I added. I call it the cuts. I rendered out from Blender a cuts mask. I duplicated my hand model, and then I did a texture paint in Blender just where I painted little white lines just in between these two knuckles where the claws go in. So when the claws go back in, I can do a little healing effect on it. So that won't be necessary for all of you. It's just something I did. It's really easy to set up in Blender. I just figured I'd add it in at the end of this tutorial here. And you'll be able to see what I got as soon as I get to it. Okay, so cuts. Just call that cuts. Apply interpretation. We're going to drag this right below the hand shadow, but above the dots. Okay. And see, this is much shorter because it was only at the very end. So you can see that's all it is. It's just a black hand with white painted on cuts and an emission shader, and then I just rendered that out by itself. So it's super easy. Nothing really complicated about it. Alright. We're going to pre-comp this right here as cuts pre-comp. Control-Shift-C. Pre-comp. Okay. And we're going to go inside there. We're going to create a white solid. White. And we're going to set that to Luma Matte. So basically what we've done here is change nothing, except now it's just the transparency with the white cuts. And we're going to use this to make the cuts on the hand look a little bit more 3D. So that should be all we need to do in here. I'm going to apply a box blur to this. Let's see. Box blur of 0.5, I believe. And next thing we're going to do is add a fill. This will just give it a nice dark bloody red color, something about like that. Ought to be good enough. Alright. And next thing we're going to do is matte simple choker. I feel like I'm saying the next thing we're going to do a lot, but there's a lot of steps. So it only makes sense that I would say that a lot. I'll try to think of a different way to say that. Okay. We're going to set this up at just as a default of 0.5. Just to tighten it up a little bit. And we don't want them to appear until the claws actually go in. So that's a good first frame for them to appear. So I'll begin brackets on that, just so it's not there before that, and then it's there. Good. Very good. Let's go to there. Alright. Now we need to figure out some keyframes where we can start the healing process. I think we'll start here-ish. Yeah, let's just make it 5:30. Click the stopwatch for the choke and hit U to bring up all of our keyframes, which is just that one at the moment. And we'll go all the way to here and set another keyframe. Well, actually, let's just drag this down to where, whoop, let's drag this up to where you can't see them anymore. So let's go 4.5 perhaps. No, 6 perhaps. 6.5. 7? There we go. Okay. And now they are gone. So if we select them both and hit F9, that sets them to E's, which is good. Alright, if we hit B, we can bring the beginning here, and then hit 0 on the numpad to do a RAM preview of that, so we can kind of get an idea of the timing and how that's going to look. This is a lot of what visual effects work is. Sitting and rendering. Yeah, so you know any good jokes? Oh look, it's just finished. That's fortunate. Okay. That's good. That's good. They're all gone now, so now we can see what the timing is like. That's a little too fast for my liking. I'm going to drag this out a little bit more. Something like that. One of the claws go all the way in. That's a good way to figure out what our timing is like. Oh, okay. Okay, so they're all the way in by this point. So let's go ahead and drag the whole thing out here. About there, then drag that out there. Yeah, that should give us some good timing. Alright, you know, this is all to taste, obviously. So I'll drag that back to where it was. Let's go ahead and save this, shall we? I'm just gonna save this, so let's see. Sure, yeah. You can see I did a couple test comps already. But, yeah. Tutorial 01, yeah. Hopefully nothing crashes and we can just plow all the way through this without an issue. Okay, so now that we have that, we are going to duplicate this, Control D, and then what are we going to do? We're going to... Yes. We're going to do a couple more box blurs. So on this top one, back blur, sharp, and box blur. Again, this one's going to be a blur of 4, I think. Let's see, 4? Yeah. And a box blur on the bottom one as well, to soften it up a little bit more. 5 8 edge pixels on both. Why not? Okay, so that just makes it look a little bit more fuzzy. Let's set these both transfer mode of multiply. Okay. Yeah, it's a little too dark, so let's bring this up a bit. Yeah, it's a little better. Alright, so I'm just gonna... I wonder if I can copy this and paste it over here. Oh, I can! You learn something new every day. Okay. I'm not sure. I think you should blur this out a bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Alright. Great. However, I think it's too bright red now. This is a process, as you can tell. Yeah, alright. Great. So now we have both of those. And now we are going to go to the footage layer effect, what is it, stylized CC glass. And you can see that it makes things all weird and wonky, which we don't want. We're going to use our cuts map instead of the footage which it's using by default. So it's this one right here. Great. And we're going to change the softness. Actually, we're going to set this to alpha first. Okay, you can see that it's doing something, but it's not doing what we want it to do. So softness of 2.5 is what I had. And a height of, what, -0.8. Yeah, so you can see that it adds a little bit of highlight to that, a little bit of 3D-ness to the inner cuttiness of it. Let's go down here to the cuttiness. Is that a word? I don't know. I just made it up. So it's a word now, guys. Feel free to use it. Give me a nickel every time someone says it. Okay, let's mess with the lighting here. The ambient lighting, I believe that's going to be set to, what, 55, I think? Okay. We don't want it to be any different than the original footage, so you can see as we switch it off, there's no difference now, which is good. Let's see. Let me check my notes. What do they say? Yes. All right. Now we're gonna keep the roughness the same. Yeah, that's something we're gonna change for something we do later. Okay. And we're gonna copy the grain from the claws layer here and add that to those as well. To the cuts. So let's see, the grain. Control C. Drag it onto this cuts pre-comp here. Control V. Okay. That'll just help blend that in a bit more. And what's next? What is next? Oh. Okay, copy the grain, did that. Okay. Now I'm going to pre-comp a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Not the claws. We're actually going to have to unlock all this stuff if we're going to copy it. So locking was a bit of a mistake of sorts. Alright, so let's see. Pre-comp, because there's dots comp, shadow match, shadow V2. Okay, and footage layer. Alright. So all these things from the hand shadow on down. Control Shift C. This is going to be footage, hand stuff. Always label your things clearly. That's what I always say. Okay. Next, some of you may recall that in Blender we also rendered out a hand mat. Or at least I did, and you should have too. And this is going to come in handy for us now. Hand mat. Apply interpretation. Yeah, this is all stuff we've seen before. So this is what that looks like. This is the model of the hand and the crappy forearm that I modeled earlier. And we're going to use this. We're going to duplicate the footage, set this as an alpha mat. So that basically we've just isolated this monstrosity here. Isn't that great? Okay. And the reason we've done that is because we're going to do a little bit of fancy displacement on my forearm for when the claws slowly come out at the beginning. Sound like fun? Good. Let's do that now. Alright. Now, let's see here. We're going to make a new solid. A white solid. Doggone it. There it is. We're going to call this displacement. Yeah. Okay. Whoa, now, hang on. Something's not right. Okay. We're going to hide this, and we're going to do all this work at the beginning. So about the time the claws are fully extended here, right about the first frame that you see them entirely. Okay. Oh, forgot about something for the hand shadow here. Let's take this claws here, take this mask here, Control C that mask, make sure we're on the same frame as the keyframe starts so it doesn't mess with that. Go into the footage hand stuff, pre-comp, go onto the hand shadow. Oh, did we already do that? Did we already do that? Oh no, we did a different one. Yeah, I want to, because the hand shadow also has that little artifact from the claw, because the claw was casting a shadow on the hand. So I'm just going to paste this here mask right there, and set that to subtract. And for some reason I can't find it. Where's all its dang... Oh, I know what it did. See it? Let's do that again, shall we? I'm just going to delete this whole mask entirely. It puts it on the first keyframe. I thought there was only one keyframe there, but there's a few. So you got to be on the first keyframe. Select this thing, Control C, go back into here. And now that we're still on that same frame, we can hit Control V, it'll put it there, hit subtract. And now it'll move over there, and then it looks good. Okay, so that was just a little side note thing that we forgot to do earlier. Carry on. Alright, so here we go. The claws are fully extended. Hip, hip, hooray. So on our displacement, we're going to add some masks. Now we're going to start up here with the claw tip. Maybe come down here. And click down here. Just basically mimicking the shape of the claw. Just a little bit. Bring that in. Okay. Hit M to bring up the mask path. Set a keyframe there. And go backwards. We're going to basically follow the motion of the claw into the arm. So we could probably just skip all the way to here. Hit V so we can control the mask. Bring it all the way there. And probably at this point what we'll do is add a little bit of curve to the mask. So if we hit G for the pen again, hit Alt, and you'll see this little thing here. Well, first of all, let me just make sure that we're not going to... Okay, just highlight this one here. Okay. G, Alt, drag to get a curve out of here. And just drag that in there. And bring it about these points over here. Just try to keep them inside the oh, okay, hang on. Inside the forearm. While still keeping it about the same length. Alright. That seems to look pretty good. And to about... So how deep do we want them to go? Probably a little further than that. Alright. Let's just click the whole thing. Whole thing. There we go. And bring it about there. Something like wrist level. Double click that. You can drag this little center point up here and then rotate it. Like that. Awesome. Hit enter. And let's see how that looks. Sliding on out. Nice. However, at this point, I do think I want to drag this over a little bit. Yeah, alright, that looks fairly decent. Now, what we can do is duplicate this mask. Control D. But we don't really want all these keyframes because it's the same keyframes that the other one has. So we'll just delete those. Click the mask, hit Shift, and use the arrow keys to nudge it over a little bit to be about in line with the other claw. Okay. And if we go to the next keyframe here, we can just put that there, double click it, put the pivot point up there in the corner somewhere, make it look like it's following the curve there. The thing we want to do now is I want to animate the opacity for this white solid, because as you can see, it's just solid right here. So I'm going to hit U to bring up all our keyframes. So at the start of this, I'm going to hit Shift T to bring up the opacity for the layer. I'm going to click the stopwatch, and about here, let's do another one. And then on the first one, we'll make that 0, so that it goes from 0 to 100 all the way up. Yeah. Excellent. Cool. Alright. Let's see. Opacity. Pre-comp. White solid. Okay, let's just pre-comp this. Control-Shift-C. Displacement. And we're going to use the hand mat. Well, hang on. I'm getting ahead of myself. On here, we are going to add a blur. You guessed it, a box blur. It's going to be at about 3 px pixels. And no, sorry, I did that in the wrong place. Control X. Let's do that in here on the white solid. What happened to our masks? Oh, crap. That can sometimes happen. Let's undo that with Control Z. I accidentally hit leave all attributes in this comp, like a moron. Control Shift Z. If you do that, it's going to leave all the effects and all the masks and everything on the outside pre-comp, but we want to actually move all the attributes. Yeah. So let's get in here. Now we've got what we want. Okay. Let's Control V. We should still have that. Great. So we're just softening that up a bit. I also want to add a directional blur. A different kind of blur. Yes! And we're going to set this to be 160 something? What do I have written down here? Negative 148. Just to kind of match the angle of the claws. But you can't see it now, so we're going to bump this up. Something like that. What did I have? 28? 29? Something like that, yeah. So now you can see they're kind of streaky. That just gives it a little bit of a nice fade off in the displacement. You'll see. Trust me, you'll see. Okay. Directional blur. Okay. Now, on this, we're going to hide this. But you're going to see. We're going to use it on this one right here. Effect. Stylize CC glass again. That gives us our nice displacement looking thing. It's going to be on displacement using the alpha again. Alright. And let's see here. Softness at 6. Height at 5. Okay, alright. And back in the lighting here. Ambient is going to be 52, and the roughness is going to be 0.9092, and the specular is going to be 15. That takes down the brightness a lot. Okay, so good. Yeah, it's not bad. Looks a little extreme though. So. Let's see. What shall we do with this? Specular 15, ambient 52. Yeah, that might be a little better. Yeah. that darkens the arm a little bit. So we're going to bring the ambient back up to 55, I think. 56, I think. I saw a little bit of fluctuation there. Okay. Alright, yeah, look at that. That looks good. So as you can see, it starts to fade in, and you see the movement as it goes up the arm. Oh, yeah. That's the stuff right there. Okay. Great. And if you want to, you can also do some more animation for when the claws go in at the end, but I'm not going to bother with it because it's so fast. It would happen in the blink of an eye, and there's kind of no point. This is the thing you want to do when you make it slow and dramatic. So, there you go. And lastly, if you want to give this a render, make sure you have the comp highlighted here, or you can click on it in the properties window here, wherever the heck it is. This one right here. You can give it an actual name if you wish. And go to Composition, Add to Render Queue, set up all your stuff here, your output module, QuickTime, whatever you want to do, image sequence, whatever, output to location, and hit render, and then you're good to go. Okay, I think that's about it, actually. Covered pretty much everything. That's about all you need to know if you're going to do this effect. So, yeah, I mean, I've never done a full tutorial before. I have no idea how to end it. But, I mean, congratulations on making it this far. That about does it for the Wolverine Claws effect. I have been and shall continue to be Steve Ernst. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. If you did, give it a like and a share, maybe. I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's about it. I'm done. Bye.